my fellow readers, my name is Mona Lisa. Welcome to my channel, Mona Lisa Reads, where today I'm going to discuss what I read in January, what I am and want to read in the month of February. I understand this is like 2 weeks into February, and I want to apologize. I'm sorry I haven't posted the past few weeks. Life has just kind of kicked us in the teeth, and just the first week I didn't post anything. I had been sick the week before. The second week I threw out my back, and then the next day I had to go get a CT scan for a completely different reason, and also got some disappointing news on two different fronts in our lives, two different areas. And this week we got some more bad news from one of those parts of our lives, and so it's just it's been really emotionally draining and physically draining and mentally draining, and just processing all the feels and trying to figure out some next steps in some areas of our life. So I apologize I haven't posted, but you know, these things in our lives have come up and we need to deal with them first. So yeah, I wish it was because I was off on vacation somewhere, like at the beach or in the mountains or something, but no, it was life. So, but I do want to discuss what I read in January. I was really happy with what I got done and what I have and plan on reading in the month of February. It's quite an insane list. So let's get to it. Before we go on, I do have to say my chair is randomly dropping down, so I'm starting off here. I eventually get here and I'll pop back up. So just let you know, if you see different heights, that's what's happening. We don't know why the chair is doing that. It is over 20 years old, so that may have something to do with it. But anyways, on to books for the month of January. I read 5. One was 860 pages, and I read that in a week and a half. But let me get to that after I talk about Green Glass House. It was the very first read of the year. It's written by Kate Milford. Green Glass House is a hotel inn place that's located on top of a mountain above a village and river, I believe it is. And Milo is the boy that lives there with his parents who run the inn. Now, the inn is a place where law-abiding citizens stay, but also not so law-abiding citizens, like your burglar and your smuggler and whatnot. And within this non-law-abiding community, it is known that you can stay at Green Glass House and nobody's going to snitch on you. The setting is Christmas, actually a few days before Christmas, and Milo is excited because nobody's there, no school, family traditions are about to happen, and he's excited. Then tons of visitors come, all from the not so law-abiding people or community, and then a snowstorm comes, so nobody can leave. And then quickly people's things start disappearing, so Milo sets out with one of the new house guests that is a little girl to go find these things. And this is part of an overarching mystery that is happening in the house that the two of them go and figure out. It's a really cute middle grade mystery. I saw a lot of the twists coming just because I'm an adult, so I could kind of see things coming. But I think for a middle grade reader who likes mysteries and figuring things out, and just the way it was done was really cute, and it tied together very well. I think it'd be a great read for them. One of the other reasons I wanted to read this book, besides hearing it was a really great story, was that Milo is adopted. He was adopted as a baby from Korea. And throughout the story, it discusses his feelings about being adopted. And because he's from Korea and he's basically surrounded in a community of white people, he talks about him dealing with that aspect of not looking like everybody else. He also deals with the aspect of wanting to know more about his birth family, but he doesn't want to hurt his adoptive parents' feelings by him wanting to know more about his biological family. And for me, this is what I've heard a lot of adoptees talk about, that they may want to know more about their birth families, about their origins, about their culture, if they come from a different culture. They want to know more, but Sometimes they don't pursue it at all because they don't want to hurt their adoptive parents, or it took them a long time to tell their adoptive parents. They love their adoptive parents, but they don't want to hurt them by pursuing their birth family and that whole part of who they are. They also have talked about the struggles they have with not looking like everybody else, or not like anybody else in their family, let alone the community that they live in. So Kate Milford wrote this as she was in the adoption process, and she wrote this for her child to be able to read, to know that these feelings and thoughts that they were having are okay, and hopefully start some conversation starters. And with my husband and I wanting to adopt, we want to have books in our home where adoption is discussed and these feelings are brought up, and maybe have some conversation starters. Maybe the child realizes, like, how you're feeling is okay. This is understandable, and we can talk about it. So I really enjoyed it for that aspect. It wasn't a ton about it in the story, but there was enough to, like, make you think, have some conversations. And maybe if you've never thought about what it would be like to be an adoptee, it'd be a really easy, fun read overall. But then you can kind of get the inside view of the adoptees and what they're thinking and what they're feeling. So really enjoyed that book. The next book, my 860-page book that I read in a week and a half, was Inheritance by Christopher Paolini. I enjoyed it so much. I did immersive reading with the audiobook and the physical book. I did the physical book alone. I did the audiobook alone. I, for some reason, could not put this down. And I was really amazed I finished it as quickly as I did, because the other 3 books in the series took me like 2-3 months minimum to read. So I think if I, drop everything in life and just read, an audiobook, I can finish huge books in a short amount of time. And that's what I did with this one. I think what got me was one was I wanted to know what happens to Aragon and Saphira. 2, I wanted to know about the big battle that everything's been building up to, and like, how was this going to end? How was Galbatorix going to be defeated? Was he going to live? Was he going to die? Who was going to die? Who was going to live? How things were going to go down? And I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm going to do like a whole other video about the whole series. But what for me was interesting was the big battle's happening, and it's going to end probably fairly soon, but there's still like 100 and something, 190, 200 pages left. I'm like, what are you going to do, Paolini, with another 200 pages of the battle's almost done? And it was discussion. It was the story about what happens after the battle, what happens to different characters, the decisions they make, how they move on. And it wasn't a perfect ending, and I loved that. I tell you, give me a bittersweet ending, and I'm there for it. Life is not clean. It is messy sometimes. Sometimes, even at the conclusion of something, there are good things that have come out of it, and you're happy with that, but there's also usually something bittersweet, or there's something that didn't resolve 100%, and that's, you've got to learn to live with that disappointment. And that's exactly what this was. And I loved it. I'm so glad I read this series. It is young adult, and I feel like for me that's a great stepping stone to be walking into Sanderson and Hobb, especially Hobb, because she just creates these worlds, and the characters she builds up, and how she weaves their stories together in between the books. Like that happens with the Inheritance cycle, but on a lesser level. So I feel like this was a good stepping stone for me to walk more into the adult fiction, and especially the high fantasy type stuff. So I enjoyed it. I will say I am sad that my journey in Allegasia with Saphira and Aragon and King Oric and Roran and all the others is over. I do know he wrote another book about some of the characters within Allegasia. So I want to pick that up very, very soon in the next few months, but I still feel like that's not going to be enough. Like, I'm just going to want to know what happens to them, and when they die, their children, and their children. Like, I just want to stay immersed in this world and see how this world grows and expands. And so, but yeah, it was such a good read. I loved it. If you haven't read it, do it. My next read, my chair keeps dropping. My next read was Partners in Crime by Agatha Christie. This is the third book in the Tommy and Tuppence series. Tommy and Tuppence are just as cute as ever, bantering back and forth and loving on each other and solving mysteries. This book has a different format than the other books that she writes. This includes 12 short stories. And let me read to you what Agatha Christie said about this book. I had also published a book of short stories called Partners in Crime. Each story here was written in the manner of some particular detective of the time. Some of them by now I cannot even recognize. I remember Thornley Colton, the blind detective, Austin Freeman, of course, Freeman Wills Croft with his wonderful timetables, and inevitably Sherlock Holmes. It is interesting in a way to see who of the 12 detective story writers that I chose are still well known. Some are household names, others have more or less perished in oblivion. They all seemed to me at the time to write well and entertainingly in their different fashions. Partners in Crime featured in it my two young sleuths, Tommy and Tuppence, who had been the principal characters of my second book, The Secret Adversary. It was fun to get back to them for a change. In Christie's autobiography, this is all she says about Partners in Crime specifically. And for me, the 12 short stories were a miss. I've mentioned it before in one of my previous videos that short stories are very hard for me to feel like I've gotten everything out of it that I can. I'm typically left wanting more character development or world building or plot storyline, a combination of those, all three of them, or even more things. I want more of it because I feel like in some ways it's incomplete, and I definitely felt that with this book. A thing I feel that would have helped me with these short stories maybe is knowing the other detectives. I only recognize Sherlock Holmes and Hercule Poirot. The other ones are unknown to me, so maybe if I had understood those characters and their mannerisms and how they solved crimes and just their personalities, I would have understood better when Tommy and Tuppence were trying to emulate them as they were trying to solve different cases. So I think for me that's why it was a miss in a lot of ways. And even in one or two of the short stories, I'm not quite sure how Tommy Tuppence got to the conclusions that they did. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention enough, or maybe there wasn't enough storyline to really make the connections for me. So it was a disappointing read. The people on my Discord all agreed. We were all left wanting more. We all felt like this book was lacking something. So it was disappointing. Would I read it again? Yes. But I'd want to read more. I'd want to read the stories that involve the detectives that were mentioned. Weird little side note, I actually went to school with a guy named Austin Freeman. So when I first read his name, I was like, I went to different Austin Freeman. So every time I read Austin Freeman, I get the mental picture of Austin Freeman that I know from like high school. So after I'd done my January monthly update video, I came across Fina from Fina Reads being involved in a readathon, and I was like, oh, cool, I've never done one. I would love to be on Fina's team. I've really been enjoying her videos and catching up on all the older ones, and so I joined, and then I looked at the prompts more closely. All sci-fi fantasy. So for me to be able to make points for my team, I ended up doing three different audiobooks, and I'm going to talk about two of them right now. One of them was The Clockwork Man by Evie Odeley, and it was timed in 1923, written around the same time period, and it's in England, and men are playing cricket, and out of nowhere, this clock man shows up in the distance, and so one of the characters goes and starts talking to him, and the Clockwork Man is basically talking nonsense. It doesn't make much sense at all. From there, he is invited to come play croquet with them. He doesn't hit at the ball, then he's told hit the ball, he hits the ball, and they're like, run, run, run. And he runs, but he doesn't turn around when he's supposed to, and he just keeps running. From there, I just didn't get it most of the time. There was different characters that come in, and some of them are like dating other women, or dating women, and it's talking about their relationships, and there's some like talk about some philosophical things and just like life things, like should you do this, if like what would you do in this situation, and if you do that, is it morally okay? So I feel like that was the best thing about this book, was the discussions that they were having in the book, and that it could cause us, like the reader, if we were doing like a group or buddy read, to have discussions about what they were talking about in the book. That for me was the best part. Clockwork Man made no sense. He's from the future, yet he's about as dumb as a box of rocks at the beginning. And I think maybe it was like the mechanical stuff going on in his head and malfunction because of the going into the past. That was kind of perfect timing. At the end, he kind of explains why he's a Clockwork Man and what happened in the world in the future for them to replace man's brain and replace it with all those clockwork mechanisms. Which, you know, listening to why it was done, that would be a whole conversation in and of itself of like, was this the right way to handle it? What would you do instead? So I just struggled with him. Even if his clockwork mechanisms were messed up, I still just feel like he, for being as advanced as they're supposed to be, he's just not that advanced. Like, men in 1923 were smarter than this robot. Like, you fall in a ditch, you should know how to get out of yourself, even if your clockwork mechanisms are a little off. You should know how to get out of a ditch. Just saying. So it was an okay read. I would reread it as a buddy read or a group read to have discussions about things that are discussed in the book. The next book I read, I would have DNF'd. And I don't DNF a lot because I'm one of those who thinks it's going to get better. They're going to make sense. Like, they're going to connect all the dots. I hold out hope. I did not want to hold out hope. I did not want to see the dots connected. I wanted to DNF. But I needed the points for the team, so I took one for the team and went through to the end. And I'm still not sure about a lot of things in this book. Basically, it's the world has had major catastrophes and man has created this Matrix type world, just not like the weird creepy men following you and it's a danger type thing, but it's like an idealistic world. You can change your sex, your hair color, eye color, your age, lots of things. And if you go into this world, you can make the choice to, your physical body dies and you just live in this other world. Some people have chosen not to live in this world, and so that's what this main character, here's his name because I don't remember, his wife and his daughter are living in the real world. Some bad stuff happens and he starts to contemplate the real world isn't that bad. And he starts going on these journeys and doing these things, but it's not, at least it wasn't clear to me what he was doing and why exactly he was doing it. There are a couple of other characters in the real world that are thrown into it. And, I think they were in the real world, or maybe one is in the Matrixy world. I'm still not quite sure on that, and I keep going lower. And the other character, like how things end with him, don't quite make sense to me either, why it went that way. It was very confusing for me, just because so many things were not connected well, and the explanation of things was not well, and there's this whole section of rolling the ball up the beach. I don't understand. And quite frankly, I don't want to understand. I just want to forget that I read this book. It didn't do anything for me. It didn't enrich my life. There wasn't anything really to discuss philosophically or like morally or anything like that. It was a very disappointing book. I did miss catching beforehand the twist at the end, but I think it's because I was so caught up in trying to understand what the heck was happening and why he was doing things he was doing that I wasn't even thinking about what could be happening next. I was just like, I don't understand. So it was like 0 stars if I were to give stars. Like I would not recommend this book personally. I mean, if it sounds interesting to you, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you, but I wanted to DNF so bad. So Fina, I took one literally for the team. Anyways, that was my January reads. February reads, real quick. I technically started this at the end of January, and I finished it at the beginning of February in time for the end of our readathon. Got the points in for that one, and that was Real Assassin by Robin Hobb. So I'm not going to go into full detail because it's technically a February read. I understand why people call her Queen Hobb, though, and I understand why people love her, and I love her now, and I want her brain to write like she does because I'm amazed. I'll go into it further in February. I will do a whole Farseer trilogy wrap-up video too, but man, I loved it. So, with Royal Assassin being done, I'm going to finish out the Farseer trilogy by reading Assassin's Quest. I'm going to be buddy reading this with Chaz over at Bookish Chaz and Danielle over at Bakara. We have a little Marco Polo going for the three of us for the discussion of this. I'm excited to see what happens. I want to know how it ends. I know we really want to discuss this, so I'm ready for it. And after we finish Farseer, we're going to move on to the Live Ship Traders series. I think that's how you say it, by Hobbs. So if you want to join and have discussions about it, I'm totally willing to put that as a topic on my Discord. I'm very excited to just continue. I'm glad there's like 16 books and I can continue in this world. I know Fitz won't necessarily be there, but I'm just excited to do that. I'm gonna go get taller now. One of the books that I had on my want to read list for the month of January was Brandon Sanderson's Elantris. Didn't get to it. I read 6 pages. So basically I'm going to start over. And so I had a plan for reading like one Sanderson book a month, but with me reading other books, I don't think that that's really going to happen. But I'm still going to make it a year of Sanderson, so I'm going to read him as much as I can and see what I can get through, and then just continue into next year with whatever I have left to read. Hopefully by that point I can get somewhat into his Kickstarter books. So and so Elantris is in February. Another book I have is Warcross by Marie Lu. I know a little bit about this. I know there's a girl who kind of hacks into this game and she ends up becoming a star over it, and she is contacted by like the creator of the game or whatnot, and she's afraid she's going to get in trouble. Instead, he wants her to help him hack into the system and or find out who may be trying to do something to his game. So she gets involved and it becomes dangerous, and so I feel like it's almost like War Games type thing. I'm not quite sure, like a cross between that and maybe some The Net with Sandra Bullock. I don't know. That's just kind of what I have in my brain. I'm probably wrong, but that's what's in my brain because I don't like knowing a whole lot going into books. So, but I feel like I have to tell you something about the book when I'm doing this. So I read a little thing and go from there. The next one is Geekerella. This book is by Ashley Poston. I have never really done a lot of romance. You know I don't like the romance novels that are burning loins and heaving bosoms, but I feel like rom-com type stuff I could probably do, and I think that's kind of what Geekerella is. It's about a girl, I believe her name is Ellie, and she's all excited because they're making this new science fiction movie thing, like doing a reboot of it, and there's any Lexicor something gala ball thing that all the fans are. It's kind of like a Comic-Con type get-together thing, and she's super excited and she's saving up money to go to this. And then there's the man who's playing the captain of this sci-fi movie, and he's kind of disenchanted at this point. He used to be really excited to go to these calm things, and now he just feels like it's fake smiles and tons of autographs, and he doesn't want to be seen as just a heartthrob. So he's been quite disenchanted by this whole movie world thing, and they end up talking via text or something, or Twitter, and they kind of start a romance thing. That's kind of all I know. The next book I have is Frankly in Love, and I do know that it's about a boy named Frank, He is first generation American Korean. His parents had come over from Korea. He was born in the States, and he's caught between the world, you know, the Korean world with his family, and then the American world outside of the house. And he finally has won the girl of his dreams, Brit, and the problem is she's a white girl. but his parents expect him to like be with a good Korean girl. So a friend of his who is Korean, they do the whole friends pretend to be dating thing so that mom and dad don't know what they're both really doing, because she's interested in a guy that parents want to approve of, and stuff happens. That's basic. I don't know what all happens. Like if Frank and this Korean girl fall in love, or I don't know. So I'm going to read it to find out. I do know at the library there is Waiting on Tom Hanks, or Waiting for Tom Hanks. And that's supposed to be another rom-com. Don't remember the author, but here it is in the information about the book. And I don't know what I read briefly what it was about, but that was like 2 weeks ago, and I requested from the library, and I've forgotten since then what it's about. So, but I think it's another rom-com type thing, and somehow Tom Hanks is involved. I don't know how. I also know I can download Sweet Tweet as an audiobook through Hoopla, so I'm going to do that, and that's another rom-com. I know it's like, if I remember correctly, it's a two families own restaurants from across the street, and the girl gets the family's recipe from the family across the street and steals it and like uses it for her family's restaurant, and there's like this Twitter battle going on between them, and then they fall in love, you know, because that's how real life happens. So that's what I have, but I also didn't read my nonfiction last month, which was The Millionaire Next Door. So that's on the table too for this month. And I would like to also read a nonfiction specifically for the month of February. And that's going to be The Connected Parent. It's a book that has been suggested to us from Adoption Agency, and I've heard about this book talked in the adoption world. So I'm going to read that. There's also a book by the same authors called The Connected Child, which I will read after I finish The Connected Parent. So those are the nonfiction books that I'm planning on reading. I don't know what exactly fully I will get into to read for the month of February. It is the shortest month of the year, so of course it makes sense that I have 12 books. But here's something I'm learning and have learned about myself. I am picking way more books than I know I'm going to be able to read in a month. But because I'm a mood reader, doing that is an advantage to me, because I have fiction, I have nonfiction, I have fantasy, I have rom-com, I have science fiction. Did I already say that? You know, and I like having options because I don't always want to read a fantasy. I may want to read something lighthearted like a rom-com. See if I like that genre. I may want something just like real life, an autobiography, or how to handle your money, or someone's view on something. So I like having the options for whatever mood I'm in. And so I'm okay with having 12 books as on my want to read list, because I want to read them. I just don't know if I'll get them in February. So we'll just have to see what happens. I'll let you know in my next monthly update which one I go for. I will give you a heads up that I am going to be doing middle grade March. So books over here, several of them are on that list. Let me know if you want to join me and read any extra middle grade books for the month of March. Let me know in the comments below what you are reading in the month of February, or what you would like to read in the month of February. Granted, we're like 2 weeks in, but still, tell me what you have read, what you are reading, what you want to read. It's okay what you tell me. Just let me know you're here. My Discord is starting to pick up some more people. I think I have like 4 or 5 people in there, so it's picking up. I'm happy about that. I'm also trying to get more connected in other people's Discords and just get to know more readers. Find new books. I'm enjoying this part. I'm just enjoying this booktube thing. It's fun for me, and it makes me be, accountable in reading more books. So I'm all about that. Anyway, I have to go now. I have to edit this video. I have dishes waiting for me, so I'm gonna stop here. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I know you could be doing other things, watching a sunrise or a sunset, depending on your time of day. You could be grooming your cat. You could be doing the dishes yourself. So I appreciate you spending time with me, especially if you're watching this while you're doing the dishes. Kudos to you on that one. I look forward to seeing you again soon. I think my next video is going to be my thoughts on overall of the inheritance cycle, just because it's fresh in my mind. And yeah, if there's any particular videos you want to know or see, let me know. I'm up for suggestions. So thank you again for your time. I look forward to seeing you later. Go read a good book.